I'm Zoe, and I'm anorexic. I'm 19 years old, and I'm 5'7", and I weigh 35 kilos. And my mom says I'm ugly. I agree I'm not very pretty. I have nothing but bones and skin. How did I get like this? Honestly, I can't remember. For some reason, I'm blindfolded. For some reason, it seems that I was born, grew, and then suddenly became like this. I wasn't interested in how I got to this point. I was more concerned about how to get out of it. With this inquiry, I decided to go to a school counselor. Mrs. Byrne worked for us for about a year. I liked the fact that our school counselor was a young, pleasant woman. She gave me more time than everyone else, and also, all our conversations remained confidential. She didn't even say anything to my mom or anyone else. She had no idea before that I was anorexic. I went to her myself, and I took off my 10 sweatshirts and t-shirt, even though it was summer outside. She asked if I was hot in that, but I said I was comfortable because, first of all, I wasn't actually hot. I was freezing all the time, and secondly, it helped cover up my thinness. Everyone knew I was thin, but they never saw how thin I really was. Everything was difficult for me in my condition. Walking, lying down, standing for a long time, and I hardly ate, often drank water, could eat one small can of yogurt all day, and that was it. If I forced myself to eat more, I immediately vomited. One day when I was changing my clothes, my mother came into my room. This happened about a year ago. At the time, I'd lost weight rapidly for reasons unknown to me. My mother saw me and started yelling at the whole room that I was ugly. At that moment, something inside me gave me such a painful tingle. It was not from the pain in my stomach. It was something deeper, something in my soul. I thought that since my mother didn't like me, it was time to do something about myself. But as luck would have it, I lost my appetite even more. I began to eat even less and lose weight even faster. My mother would grab my hand and make me eat the entire plate of food. If I refused, she would slap my hands. But she didn't see the pain I was in afterward, sitting on the toilet for hours, suffering from undigested food and vomiting. I lost another kilo, and then another, and went to a psychologist. Mrs. Byrne often asked about my mother, but I loved her with all my heart, so I talked about how wonderful she was. Then my psychologist wanted to talk to her, but I said my mom was very busy. She was. She worked a lot because I didn't have a father. Byrne asked if my mom had any boyfriends. I didn't understand what that had to do with the topic, so I refused to answer. Although something inside gave me a big ache, something in my heart area. Byrne said she wouldn't push it and handed me a piece of paper that outlined a couple of ways to improve my appetite. And you had to start small, like getting into the habit of eating at least a little breakfast. To observe the dynamics, she advised me to record the results. She took out a camera and asked me to undress my shirt. So I did. Stood against the wall and she took a picture. The moment the flash blinded my eyes, I closed them and remembered something. Then I went home. The next day, Byrne came up to me. She asked me how I was doing and invited me into her office. I sat down and began to tell her that everything was fine, that I had eaten a little in the morning and my mother was happy. The psychologist asked me about yesterday. I asked with surprise, "And what happened yesterday? Don't you remember anything? You gave me a prescription and I went home. Why? You don't remember anything?" No. The psychologist wrote something down. Then she wished me luck and I left. In the evening, my mother made me eat again. I ate and someone came home. It was her boyfriend. We said hello. Mom said they were about to take a shower and go to the movies. Mom's boyfriend was a photographer. I asked him how his work was, and he bragged about his new lens and then offered to take my picture. I sat down in my chair happy. Flash. He took my picture and I went into the other room. My mom came up to me before she left. She seemed angry. When I asked her why, she said that I was making fun of her, that I had no right to do that, and that I was ugly. I didn't understand anything, but just in case, after they left, I went to eat through sheer force. When I went to the bathroom, I was again suffering from pain in my stomach. Then I noticed how much hair had fallen out and one tooth had chipped off. I was in a state of shock. I had no choice but to call Byrne and tell her everything. She came to me in the middle of the night and calmed me down, gave me some pills, washed my face, and put me to bed. I felt so good at that moment. She asked again about my mom's boyfriend, and I told her that he was a photographer and that they were now out on a date. "Has he photographed you, even once?" she asked me. I said he had. Then she asked for the pictures, but I said I didn't have any for some reason. She left me in the room and asked if she could use the computer at home, and I said yes, and she found something there. I went to the computer and happened to see pictures I'd never seen before. I was in a terrible state, in tears and bruised. I looked at my body and saw the abrasions. I was frightened. I said I didn't remember anything. I got dizzy and finally remembered something. They were fragments of memories, only it seemed to me as if they weren't mine, but someone else's. And they were very scary, frightening, full of pain. I cried. Byrne hugged me, and then she sat across from me and told me to pack my things and come to her house. I did as she said. I packed my bag, but just before we left, we ran into my mom and her boyfriend. They freaked out and started asking who she was and why she was taking me. The psychologist shielded me with herself. Mom started yelling that she was going to call the police, and Byrne said she'd called them herself.
"How dare you?"
yelled Mom's boyfriend.
"And you shut up, you freak,"
said Byrne.
"You, both of you were bullying the child. She didn't used to be like that. She was complete, right? What did you do to her? I found the pictures. I'll show them in court. You've been starving her. I found a video of you, Mom, telling her how fat she is, and your man says she doesn't fit in the frame. Did you know that the flash of the camera gives her epilepsy attacks? And did you know that after that, her memory wipes out, but her subconscious remembers everything? Her brain desperately resists painful memories for the simple reason that you are her mother,"
yelled Byrne. I listened to this as if it weren't about me. I was scared, my body ached, and I felt nauseous. Byrne kept talking about how my mother was a monster and that she'd brought me to this state. And then my mother exploded. She started talking about how men hadn't looked at her before because her daughter was too fat and that she was ashamed of it. That after she met her boyfriend, he started saying I should be put on a diet and they were both starving me just to make me a little prettier. I looked at them and I couldn't believe it. I fell to the floor, but I didn't lose consciousness. I was suddenly terrified to be in this house. Byrne was holding my hand in such a way that it nearly broke a bone. She pushed my mother's boyfriend and ordered him out of her way. He swung his arm, but Byrne fought back. At that moment, I remembered my mother hitting me, not giving me food, and my obsession with my figure. Every word of my mother's disgust, every word about my figure made me nauseous, and I began to lose weight. 5 minutes later, the police arrived. Mom and her boyfriend were arrested. Byrne took me in. I stayed with her for a while. I was dragged to courts, to the station. Byrne hired a lawyer, and they both got sued for abusing me. I felt terrible. I couldn't believe my brain was so adapted to the pain. Finally, after 3 months, we won the lawsuit. They rewrote the entire estate to me as compensation, and they both got jail time. Afterward, Byrne took care of me thoroughly. She treated me in all kinds of ways, but you know what helped the most? She loved me. She became my sister and got custody of me. It's been a long time since then, but this morning I woke up for the first time and made breakfast for the two of us, which I ate with great pleasure. The scale was +2 pounds, and that's our victory.